My ball. I found my ball. I thought I lost my ball. Got my fingerboard. Got my fidget spinner. Which fidget do I wanna spin or flip, you know? I always have trouble starting these. I feel awkward hearing my voice out in the open air. I feel camera shy a little bit. I've always been better in my head, you know. It's been about 1 week since I smoked weed last. This is an update video. I wanted to talk about a couple things that have been going on. A couple things I've been dealing with and working on regarding that and just mental health in general. I definitely went through withdrawal for sure. Nothing crazy, but definitely a noticeable, I would say a little concerning, because, you know, I didn't realize that you could actually withdraw from weed, and it's not like a I'm tweaking out, like like kind of withdrawal, more of a cognitive, that in addition to limiting my caffeine intake. I guess my brain had to recalibrate the regulation, or like the chemicals or whatever. The first couple days, there was definitely a spike in anxiety, a lot of like emotional dysregulation, I would say. And that's also something I want to touch on, is kind of I've been I think teaching myself how to emotionally regulate better, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to talk about two things. It's just basically weed. I want to talk about a little bit about the withdrawals that I went through. After about 8 days, the withdrawals kind of stopped after day 6 or 7. That's when I noticed myself feeling like back to normal. First couple days, definitely a spike in anxiety and emotional kind of like dysregulation, feeling like panicked and like crawling in my skin almost, with like just stuff that, like, certain things that happened, feeling like, I don't know, it just, the anxiety was heightened. And I don't know if that's probably a combination of things. I don't know if it was just the weed, but like a combination of like ADHD and limiting caffeine and stopping weed, and just like overall mental health. It was probably it's like a cocktail of stuff that was going on past week. The most annoying symptom of the withdrawal, I would say, was probably this sense of, it was like foggy memory, where I feel like I was kind of just like going about the day, and I would do things like, I don't know, watch like an episode of a show or something, and then later a little bit, like, I would not remember doing that, but like I remember doing it, but it was so, I felt like I was on autopilot. I was just kind of like going about my day, and I wasn't like remembering what I was doing, even though like I had the memory. It's very hard to explain, but like I had the memory of doing the thing, but I don't remember like consciously doing it. It was just kind of like I was kind of zombified a little bit. It felt like, for probably 3 or 4 days, where it just, that on top of limiting my caffeine. So it was like that, and then I think by day 6 or 7 was where that kind of went away, and I kind of started feeling normal, and like I feel like I was more like in control of myself and not complete autopilot. Another thing that was kind of weird was my sleep. It definitely, I had, I guess, like the insomnia, where I felt really restless trying to fall asleep and feeling like anxiety, like feeling like I was crawling in my skin trying to fall asleep, and just like having like intense racing thoughts. And then there was one day where I had actually a couple false awakenings, which I've never had before. In my dream, I woke up and I was just waking up for the day. And I remember like being in my bathroom in the dream and being like feeling a little weird, and I was like, oh, I kind of feel like I'm still dreaming or whatever. I feel like something's not right. And as soon as I had that thought in the dream, I like woke up and like almost had like I don't know, feeling like I kind of woke up out of a sleep cycle, and I was like really groggy, and I feel like I never really woke up fully that day, and it took me a while to actually wake up, and I feel like I was kind of just like dreaming. That lasted a couple days. The insomnia, dreams, of course, that's a classic. The dreams get more vivid, more emotional dreams. I was having first couple days, I was having like emotional dreams, like having dreams where I was dealing with heavy emotions, and like seeing like deceased pets and loved ones kind of thing a little bit, crying in dreams, just like a very emotional dreams happening. Past couple days, I've not really had those anymore. It kind of tapers off. But first couple days, very intense dreams, hard to get to sleep, racing thoughts, tossing and turning, feeling anxiety. I feel really good though. I feel really good, actually. in terms of like I feel like I want to do things, and I feel just like I don't feel as weighed down, and I don't feel as trapped in myself, and that is probably a combination of stopping weed and just like the mental health work I've been doing on my own, which I'm going to talk about. Limiting caffeine. I think I'm realizing now that I actually don't like being overstimulated, at least the way that I was doing it. Like I've been drinking my morning coffee, and I've been trying to, only have that. And even at my job, I try to, drink decaf, and that kind of first couple of days of me doing that, this was simultaneously happening too. So like last time I smoked or had THC was last week, Saturday night. That was also the day that I had like a lot of caffeine, where I was like sitting there like paralyzed with overstimulation, like absolutely tweaking out. So that happened, and then the next day I was like, all right, I need to, both of these things are not doing good. I don't even know why I decided to stop smoking weed. I think something came up on my Instagram reels where it was saying like how the drug that you get addicted to, says a lot about your personality, and people that chase, weed, alcohol, stuff like that, want to quiet the noise inside, and people that chase stimulants, like, probably like coke, caffeine, stuff like that, want to, feel sharper and feel more, cognitively sound. And it got me thinking, and I was like, I never really looked at that perspective within myself. That's probably true to a certain degree, aside from the ADHD and the dopamine. There's probably a part of me that, weed helps quiet that noise. I've talked about that before, where in even my journals back, like, last year and months ago, I have journal entries of me smoking, and then commenting on how I feel like it slowed my brain down, and all the noise was kind of just, I could actually think about my thoughts, and my thoughts weren't like this, and they were more like hyper focused. It's just kind of like a combination of things kind of clicked at once. That usually is how things happen with me. I don't know. There's usually it seems like a lot of the times there's all this stuff going on, and then puzzle pieces kind of fit together, and then I absorb a bunch of information at the same time, in the right time for my brain to be like, oh, that makes sense, and stuff clicks. So like simultaneously I'm stopping weed and dealing with the emotional dysregulation from stopping weed, also while limiting my caffeine, having to deal with the dysregulation from not having the caffeine, and then also learning, I absorb a lot of stuff on my Instagram reels, is all just mental health and stuff like that, healing, and so I just keep absorbing all this information, and a lot of it's sticking, and a lot of it I'm practicing on my own, and it's really working. Moving to the other stuff I want to talk about, the mental health side of stuff, aside from the weed and the caffeine. There's probably more I could talk about at that, but thoughts are kind of all over the place, so I'm going to move on to this. Something huge that I'm practicing lately, this past week's been like a theme of, quitting weed, limiting caffeine, and what I'm about to talk about is just kind of like, I guess they call it somatic healing, somatic therapy is what it's called. I dabbled and did stuff with inner family systems a couple months ago, the IFS stuff, like the part work, and how there's different parts of you that kind of get fragmented almost, and that's a whole other thing. You have like your exiles and your firefighters, and just like all like the different parts of you that are like personified, that you can kind of that. So I dealt with that, but this now I'm working on actually feeling my feelings, which has helped immensely with the process of stopping weed and limiting caffeine, where now I'm implementing that into the feelings and regulation. So essentially what I started doing was I started feeling my feelings, right? And I feel like that's kind of confusing, because feeling feelings is, if you feel angry, you're fucking angry, right? I think the way that I started looking at it helped kind of, because the way that I go about, at least for me personally, is the way that I go about feelings and thinking is that if I have a feeling, and especially an intense and overwhelming feeling and emotion, I try to solve it, and I try to get to the bottom of it, and I try to tell myself that it's not true, and I go down these crazy rabbit holes of going to the deepest, darkest places of psyche and trying to, fix it, trying to get to the bottom of it. Maybe if I understand why I'm having this feeling, I won't have it anymore. All the while, that emotion and that part inside of me is begging to be heard and begging to be felt. So it's like my body is begging for me to, be there for it and feel it and help it feel better, all the while I'm essentially being like, no, we have to, everything but that, right? So if I'm feeling sad, it's like, okay, well, all right, so what can I do to not feel sad? I need to distract myself. Let me put on music. Let me go pace around. Let me go for a walk. Let me go do this. Anything but to feel the feeling, right? So it's either I try to think myself out of feeling things. Except if I'm feeling good. And the problem is, even if I'm feeling good, I start questioning it. I'm start like, oh, well, now I'm feeling good. So like, how can I recreate this next time? Like, oh, it's going to go away. So it's like every feeling and emotion that I have, it feels like there's a logic behind it. And that is not working. Clearly it's not working because my body is slowly shutting down. It is so unbelievably, it's like malfunctioning. And it's causing my nervous system to be dysregulated and like my nervous system has no idea what to do with these things. Again, I saw this Instagram reel. I'll put it in the description. The one that really started getting me thinking. I forget what it said, but for me, explaining my process of things, it's essentially, I guess, mindfulness and somatic healing, I guess, where I will feel a feeling. If it's a anxious feeling, for example, start getting heaviness in my chest. I feel a lot of it in my shoulders and my arms, like in like the anime when they do like when like somebody's like shocked to their bones and they do like the lines and like the dread, like that's kind of what it feels like. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I'll maybe throw a picture up. That kind of feeling, and just like, instead of, that is very uncomfortable. And I feel like every time I've had that, it's kind of like, this is the worst thing ever. I don't want to feel this. This is terrible. This is, I never want to feel this again. And I feel like I've realized is in me saying I never want to feel this again, I don't want to do that. I'm neglecting what my body needs from me. I'm neglecting, it's begging me to feel it, and I'm saying I never want to feel this again, right? So that's where the inner family systems and the somatic healing really kind of starts surfacing, where if you personify these things, you're essentially saying to this part of you that is hurting and is trying to feel, like your body's trying to process it, it's trying to regulate itself and it's trying to release the emotions and the stuff, and I'm basically saying that sucks. I don't want to see that. If a child is freaking the fuck out and having anxiety and feeling a certain type of way, and you're basically saying I'd never want to see you again, like that is essentially what I'm doing to my body. And maybe it's not that, maybe it's just like, that's what I'm doing with my body, but it has been working. So just feeling that feeling, and as painful it is, just kind of like letting myself feel that feeling, right? Letting myself feel it instead of trying to push it away, sit with it, be there for it, feel where it feels in the body. If I feel it's like, oh, feel it there, just acknowledge that it's there. I've almost like invited it in, like I don't want you to leave. Just, I don't have to, figure everything out right now. I don't have to deal with anything right now. I'll just feel that. In tandem with identifying what the actual emotion is. Something that really clicked for me was identifying what the actual emotion is that I'm feeling, kind of takes the thought away from it and makes it into a feeling. And what really clicked for me was feeling confused, right? I feel like I've been really confused all over the place past couple years and months, just kind of like not really knowing what's going on. And I feel like I kept telling myself, like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just confused. I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. And realizing that I'm not actually confused, I'm overwhelmed. My nervous system is so unbelievably overwhelmed that it's pretty much going into shock. It's going into shock, and it has no idea how to deal with all of the things that are being thrown at me. So I'm kind of just like in this state of, I feel confused, I don't know what's going on, I'm confused. Once I started telling myself that I'm just overwhelmed, all of the overthinking that had to do with trying to figure out why I'm confused, because if I'm saying I'm confused, that gives the connotation that there's something to figure out. I'm confused, let me look at this point of view, let me look at this point of view, let me look at this, let me look at that, let me try to figure out this, let me go here. And it's just, if I say I'm overwhelmed, it takes away the thinking, and I feel overwhelmed. That's all it is. And then my body can kind of feel safe. It can feel safe to feel overwhelmed. It doesn't have to think about all of the things that it needs to figure out on why it's confused. And so that's more of like I would say a big example, but like even smaller examples I've been practicing at work and just in my day-to-day life the past week. It's become like Control S for if you make music or make art, digital art, Photoshop, music, having Control S on muscle memory. It's kind of become like that. So if I feel a certain thing, I pause and ask myself, how did that make me feel? How are you feeling? Like a check-in, right? For example, I had a customer come into work, and I picked up a vibe. Nothing really happened, but like my body sensed that it tensed up. Like listening to my body, like something's kind of off. Nothing really happened with the customer, but I definitely like a weird, that didn't really make me feel good. That didn't make me feel good. That's all it is, right? Because I feel like before, like if a customer came in and made me not feel good, or like someone else like made me not feel good, it would be like, okay, well, all right, so like, why did they not make me feel good? Maybe it's me. Maybe I need to like, I don't know, but maybe it's them. Let me try to understand their perspective. Let me try to, or it would cause a crash out, and I would have no idea what to do with it. So like if a customer came in and if I got like heated, I would just crash out and not know what to do, and then feel like I go into freeze or fight or flight. And it's like, I guess that's a bad example, but just stuff in general. Like if something happens and I feel my body react, you can feel it. Your body, I guess I just started listening to my body, and I started checking in with it and asking it, how what feeling I'm feeling. And it's been like, Control S muscle memory, where if I feel a certain way, I'm like, okay, how does this make me feel? Sad? Damn, that sucks. I feel sad. And that's kind of it, right? Or I feel angry. That made me feel angry. And it kind of stops the emotion from exiting my body, and it kind of just keeps it in check a little bit, where like I still get the like, like a feeling, but it feels more like I can kind of like, okay, that made me feel angry. I feel it in my shoulders. I feel it in my, my eyes. I feel it in my, my breath. I feel angry. And it just, for me, it helped it just kind of keeps it contained, and it helps, stop it from exiting that, and just like letting myself feel the emotion and being there with it. So like if something sad happens, or if something makes me feel sad, like another example, small example, was, I don't know, this guy just like walked past work, and he was smoking a cigarette, and for some reason that, my usual go-to response would be like, oh, that guy's smoking cigarettes, that guy fucking doesn't care, he's so like, like he, he's just like, doesn't care, man, he can't control himself, man, like he's addicted, man, that sucks, man, like, and then it turns into like, that spirals into, projection, and then I project onto that dude walking past, and it's just, no, that made me kind of sad. That made me kind of sad that, I feel like, cigarettes are not good for you. Like seeing that guy smoking a cigarette, like it's bad for him. That's sad. And it's like, I'm so not used to feeling those emotions and not knowing what to do, because I've always pushed away sadness and stuff like that, and I never really allowed myself to feel what that feeling actually felt like, and let my body, feel that. I had an emotional day the other day, and it was the first time that I was just thinking about the day. It was a good day, but like there was some stuff that I was dealing with personally and in my head, and it's just like that was the moment where the overwhelming and confusion thing clicked for me, where I stopped being confused, and I told myself I'm overwhelmed, and I was just thinking about stuff that happened, and for the first time I think ever in my life, I let myself cry. But it didn't feel, I feel like whenever I used to think about crying, and I used to think about that, it would seem catastrophic, right? Or like, I can't do that, it's too vulnerable, I'm not allowed. But I told myself it was okay, and I just like acknowledged, like just felt it, you know. Whole time I was doing it, like I felt the emotion, and I welcomed it in, and I was like, I told myself that it was okay. And like, there was this one video talking about how this is the video that I was talking about before that kind of helped, where if you just kind of sit with your feelings and sit with where they are and where they sit in your body, and you know, you welcome them in, and you know, just sit with it, and where your body will do what it needs to do, and it'll place that emotion where it needs, and it will release that. So that's what I let happen, right? I let the, you know, emotions run over me, and I rode the wave of the emotion, and it didn't last long at all. It was just enough to feel good, and it felt like love. And that was what was like, oh, this is crazy, because that in that moment it clicked for me that sadness and grief and happiness and joy and love are all intertwined as like the same emotion, right? Like if something's so inspiring and beautiful that you cry from it, it's the same release, the same emotion. And it almost felt like beautiful in a way for me, allowing myself to do that, because for so long I just kept everything inside, and just like, you know, starting to allow myself to feel and identify the feeling behind it and the emotion behind it, instead of the solution, right? For so long I tried to find solutions to my feelings instead of just feeling them and identifying that I feel them, right? Because it's, what am I gonna do, right? If I feel sad, I'm gonna feel sad. There's nothing I can do to not feel that. So I might as well just like invite it in. And that's what's helped with, you know, limiting caffeine and the weed and whatever, where it's like, if I am feeling bored or understimulated, I feel understimulated. I feel bored, and it takes away the solution that I've been trying to figure out. And it just makes it less of a dire situation, where like every emotion that I felt dire, and it felt like critical, where like, if I don't figure this out, something bad is gonna happen. But instead, in reality, I just need to learn how to feel that, and that's okay. That's it. And it's something that I'm practicing. You know, this is just something that I've discovered the past week. I picked up on like the IFS and interfamily stuff like months ago, but somatic stuff I just kind of started practicing, and it's been the most effective, I would say, in terms of learning how to feel. And like, you know, I feel a combination of, you know, not feeling overstimulated, like I'm crashing out off of like 2 Red Bulls, and, you know, not feeling, you know, foggy and weighed down with weed, and, you know, practicing emotions. I feel pretty good. I feel okay. The pain in my body from anxiety doesn't feel as heavy. You know, it gets really heavy sometimes, and you know, it's a work in progress, and it's something that I'm actively practicing every day. And you have to practice it, I guess. It's something that I've built in and started building in. You know, every single emotion that I feel, I do a quick check-in of like, oh, how did that make me feel? And then I just describe the emotion I'm feeling. I'm sad, I'm overwhelmed, I feel angry, I feel irritated, I feel bored, I feel disappointed, and it just takes away all of the reason and the logic, and it kind of just like reminds your brain that it's okay to just feel that, right? You don't have to figure it out, just feel it. And then once you give your body the okay to just feel it, it can start doing what it needs to do, and it can start feeling safe. And that's what you have to do for yourself, is what I'm learning over time, is that you have to feel safe within yourself. Nobody else can do that for you. no substances can do that for you. You know, nothing can really do that for you. That's something that you have to figure out. And if you don't figure that out, you're always going to be chasing something else. And I intuitively understand this right now. And like, you know, I still like caffeine. I like, you know, I'm not against weed, you know, but like right now I don't want to smoke it. You know, like people are, you know, obviously connection is important and people are important, and you know, that's how we are social animals. That's how we survive. But in terms of, you know, the true regulation and just being able to, you know, heal yourself and heal stuff, is you have to be safe within yourself securely. Obviously I just started this and I feel like I just began this practice, but I can understand that, you know, it takes work, and I feel excited. I feel excited that this is something that I'm practicing, because it kind of takes away a lot of the pain I've been dealing with mentally, because for a long time I think I built a lot of my personality around thinking deep and, you know, critically thinking and being hyper vigilant, essentially just like hyper vigilant of everybody else, and like I'm super aware of everything, and I'm super empathetic, and it's just, I think I'm scared of who I am, you know, without that. I'm scared, and I can admit that I think I'm scared of who I am without, because it's a coping mechanism, constantly, you know, questioning, you know, trying to, you know, solve emotions and then prepare for, you know, things and not feel sad. It's all coping mechanisms. And the phrase that kept replaying in my head, you know, it's feeling is healing, I think it's what it was. Healing is feeling, or feeling is healing, something like that, where it's like, to heal is to feel, right? And you can't think yourself out of that. And, you know, I'm still working on it. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to, you know, teach. This is not gospel. This is not, you know, a guide. This is not a how-to necessarily, but this is just my personal experience. And yeah, I just feel more capable. And, you know, I also noticed that once I started, you know, feeling my feelings and identifying the emotion behind it, and, you know, I feel like the mind chatter kind of started going away a little bit, where I feel like I don't really have as many thoughts. I feel less in my head, it feels really good, because I feel like I've just been, for the longest time, just stuck in literally a mental spiral, not in reality. Everything, I was like, you know, judging everyone and just kind of like mad at everything, and just like, I don't know, but I realize now that I was just been overwhelmed, and I've been neglecting myself. And it's like I'm smoking weed to try and, you know, regulate myself, and I'm doing that to, you know, explore my creativity, and that's cool and all. And I'm drinking caffeine and you know, trying to, I don't even know. It's just, I think I just was, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that I feel a lot better limiting caffeine and being off weed and practicing this. I feel a lot better. I feel okay. I feel safe. And that is the goal. The goal is to feel safe within yourself, because nobody's can really do that for you. I mean, people can like teach you and make you feel more comfortable to start learning how to do that, I guess. But again, I don't know 100% what I'm talking about. This is just my personal experience. So I just know I've been walking around with a lot of hate. I think that hate was just a product of a complete nervous system collapse. You know, everything but feeling my feelings. You know, if something made me upset, you know, it's their fault. They suck. I don't know. I guess I'll leave it at that. Here, check this out. Ready? So I'll end this video. Skateboard, fingerboard. Check it out. If I do like this. Peace.